So it's just about 1 o'clock, so we can get started. Here is the webinar outline for today. It's rather short and sweet. FCS Express can import your acquisition workspace from your Accuri cytometer or your BD cytometer running FACSDiva. On my intro screen, I showed a picture of that here on the left-hand side where you can adjust the page layout and the margins and everything how you want. But the key point is the imported workspaces will include all plots and gates from acquisition and can be modified just like a regular FCS Express layout. So the great thing about this is that rather than recreate the wheel from scratch and try to remember what your acquisition gating strategy was and which were the initial plots you were looking at, you can use your acquisition workspaces as a starting point for your actual offline analysis. And many times the acquisition workspaces contain all or most of the gates and the hierarchy to get you started. Or even if it only contains a subset of what you're actually going to do because your analysis is more in depth, it just makes sense to reuse that rather than starting over and trying to jog your memory about how you did your initial gates. So in this webinar, we're going to show you how to import the workspaces from Diva, which are an XML file format, or the Accuri cytometer, and that's a C6, or the newer cytometers are a CI file format. We're going to show you how to modify plots, gates, and add statistics, and then we can show you how to batch process to Excel and PowerPoint to summarize the results from all your data files. Because as you know, when you're acquiring your samples on the cytometer, you're looking at just the one tube at a time because there's the one tube on the SIP, and that's what you're seeing updating live in the plots. And so in FCS Express, you can kind of scroll through all your data files in the data list and or do a batch process to archive the results from your entire list of samples that you acquired during that acquisition session. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We can import the BD FACSDiva workspace first. So you'll go to the File tab and go to Open From, and then click on Import BD FACSDiva file. And I do have one here. And you'll click on the XML file because that's how BD FACSDiva saves its acquisition workspace. Then click Open. So this should be opening up in just a second here. And then you have the choice, do you want to import your acquisition template or your analysis worksheet or both? And we're going to click both for today. And it's asking you, do you want to load the FCS files referenced by the experiment file? Even if you don't want to do that, you can always load them later. But since I have the files, I know where they are in my computer, I'm going to go ahead and click Next. If you want to, you can browse to the location here by clicking on the yellow folder, if that isn't the correct location that pops up. And then click Next. And here, this is just a lot of text. I don't even read it, but you see how Finish is grayed out. So in order to enable that, I'll just click the other radio button. All this is if you did previously import a BD FACSDiva file and set the margins and the page sizes and everything as such as you wanted it, you could use that existing configuration. I've not really seen too many people do that, so you can just go ahead and click Create a New Configuration because that only takes a couple of seconds, as you'll see, and then click Next. Okay, here you can choose to look at Portrait or Landscape as you want to import the data file, the acquisition file rather. Here in the Diva Logical Selection Viewer, we sort of get a page preview, and you can zoom out clicking the little minus magnification sign, and then you kind of click inside the grid of the dotted lines here to get the pages appear, to have the page breaks where you want them to be. Okay, so I'm gonna do something like this, and if you want to play with the margins and such, you can do that here. Oops, don't want a negative margin, okay? You can also leave all of these alone if that's not really important to you, and just click Next. And I would say don't save the configuration because all those margins and page sizes and things, it's pretty trivial to do next time. So I would just click Finish. And now the software is asking you what file do you want to look at first. And this reminds me, when you are exporting your Diva files, you want to export the Diva files separately because those are the true FCS files. So when you're in Diva, you want to right-click on the experiment and export the experiment XML file, and then throw away the files that come with that because those are not the true FCS files. And then in Diva, again, right-click and say Export FCS files. So those are the true FCS files that you want to use. Okay, and then this link here will basically repeat what I just said to you. It'll remind you how to export the true FCS files. Okay, so why don't we just look at this one first, the Cytox 5 nanomolar probably, and click OK. All right, so this has come through, and you can continue to modify all these files and everything, but first I want to show you all the gates that you defined in your Diva acquisition workspace are here. Okay, and why don't I zoom in so that it's not so small on the webinar? Okay, so you probably recognize this nomenclature. So this is your P3 gate. So you can move this gate around. Okay, it's totally flexible. You can resize it, etc. You can add more gates here. So if I wanted to do make a gate around this PE negative region and call it PE negative or PE low. Okay, and then we have page 2 because we did import a couple of pages in the importer. You see we have some density plots here as well, or contour plots rather. Okay, you can resize these plots. You could resize multiple plots at once, like all the typical rules that apply to FCS Express layouts apply here. Okay, and everything is coming through, all the plots and gates from acquisition. The only difference is FCS Express doesn't understand the color dot plot format of FACSDiva, so they just come in as regular black and white dot plots. So if you want to change these to color dot plots, you can select the plots and come over to the Format tab and change this to color dot. Okay, and now you see the colors coming through. And if you want to further edit the format of these plots, you can do so by clicking on Gates to Display and say you only want to display the red and blue colors, the gates that are drawn, here on this actual plot. Okay, so I just checked those off. We go more into detail on that in our gating section of the manual and an upcoming gating webinar. So I highly suggest that you register for those. And then, of course, all of our data files are here too. And I will just edit this so that you can see the file names without the whole path there. And, you can double click on any one of these to look at another file. And then once you do that, all of these numbers should become blue. And then you can click Previous and Next, and you see we're looking at all of our data files. We're previewing them, okay? If you want to do a batch process to summarize these results in Excel and PowerPoint or PDF, you can do that. So I'm going to take you through how to do that really quickly before we go through the Accuri importer, which is going to be very fast. Before we do that, why don't we quickly add some statistics? You do have some basic statistics showing here, the percent gated, but you can right-click on a plot and click on Statistics on the pop-up menu and put in a statistics window here. Okay, and then this is going to show you all the events in that plot. So since this plot is gated on whatever this gate, experiment 003, it's going to be using that as the denominator. So I'm not going to go too much into the details on statistics in this webinar, but I just wanted to kind of give you a little preview of what it can do in case you have limited familiarity with FCS Express, okay? So like I said, it's using the gate of the plot as the denominator to calculate this column, percent of gated cells. The key point is that I want to show you is you can right-click on the statistics window and take out any columns that you don't need. So maybe I'm not interested in X geometric mean or Y geometric mean, but I do want to take a look at the X median. I could put that in, okay? And then you can also hide the rows for the gates you're not interested in. So let's just uncheck, whoops, sorry, I meant to do gates to display. So let's just do, those two that we are looking at the colors for, the red and the blue gates. Okay, so that makes this a little bit more, okay. So before we do a batch process, I will just do a quick save because I don't like to lose my work in case something happens. All right, so you can come to your batch actions, and I'm going to do this very quickly because we do have a getting started webinar and a batch processing webinar that goes into this in more detail. So I'm not really going to narrate this. I'm just going to set it up so you know, so you see a demonstration of how this could be combined with your imported Diva or Accuri workspaces. Okay, so I'll just call this Diva. Okay, and this is my Excel, so I'm just going to put in a few different statistics and the file name like this. And maybe I just want these couple of statistics right here, and maybe something off of this P3 gate. So I'll drag that in, and maybe I want to look at the percent of gated cells and the number of events and the X median for that. Okay, and now we'll just quickly put in a save to PowerPoint, and I'm going to put this on my desktop too, and say okay. And so when you do the batch process, you want to make sure you're starting with the first file because you're going to get the batch process results from the active iteration, the one that's showing in the plots through the end of the data list. So if you are not looking at your first file, just click on the blue one there to get to the first file. And then you can click Run. And it is going to generate these files in just a couple of moments. So here's our Excel export popping up. And if you're doing this on PC, it'll probably be a little faster just because Office is a little bit slow on my Mac. Okay, but yeah, that looks pretty straightforward, right? So you're getting a row of data for every file, and then these are the different statistics that we exported from. And then our PowerPoint should be open as well. So we're getting, we had, I think, 8 files, right? So we have 16 slides because we had 2 pages in our layout. So we have 2 slides for each file. And this looks exactly like your Diva workspace, exactly like your FCS Express workspace, okay? And these are a regular PowerPoint type of file. So just like when you do a normal batch process in FCS Express from a regular layout, these are all high-res images, and you can resize them and move them around and such. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to take you through the Accuri import. We're not going to do a batch process with the Accuri. It's going to be really quick because I just want to show you that the importer works almost exactly the same as the Diva import. Before I do that, I just wanted to add, you can also add additional plots by the normal methods here. So dragging and dropping the P3 gate out. Now we have a new plot gated on P3, or you could use the insert tab and put in a density plot. Okay, so I just wanted to mention, in addition to adding new gates, you can add new plots. I had neglected to do that before. So let's import our Accuri workspace. You'll just go to the File tab like you did before and click on Open From, and click on Import BD Accuri C6 file. If you have a newer Accuri, it's probably called a CI file. That's fine. You can import CI files just the same. I just have an older sample here, so I'm going to import the C6 file. Okay, so this is going to ask you if you want to import data from the Collect and the Analyze tab, or just one or the other. I'm going to leave them both checked, and it's asking you which sample you want to look at first. So I'll just leave it there on the first one, sample A07, and click Next. This is just like what we saw before, right? And I'm going to click Finish. I'm not going to play around with those margins this time. Alrighty, so this is your list of files, and let me remove the entire file path so we can just see the sample names more easily. Okay, and so you can again, preview your samples, go through your entire data list, etc. Okay, you can move your quads and your markers around, your gates. You can add new plots just like I showed you before, and change parameters on those plots, etc. It's all very much like a typical FCS Express layout. So feel free to play around with that. Okay. If you need to zoom in to a file, zoom into a plot, you can right-click and click on Magnify Resolution and zoom in. And I'm just pointing that out because sometimes with the Accuri wide dynamic range here, like this plot on the lower right, you have your region of interest way up in the corner somewhere, or way down in the corner somewhere. So an easy way to zoom in there is just right-click on the plot and click Magnify Resolution. I would suggest that, not Magnify Axis. And your cursor will become a crosshairs, and you can do a click drag around the region of interest. And now, you can do it repeatedly. Okay. And you can look at all your other pages here. But basically, in a nutshell, it's really very similar to what you saw with the BD FACSDiva import process, right? The only other thing I'll add is for Accuri data, if you don't have these sample names appearing in your plot titles, it seems to be dependent on the version of the Accuri software you have. You can just add it manually if you just do a Control-A or a Command-A if you're on a Mac to select all the plots, and come to Format, Title, and then you can put in a keyword. So we'll do keyword from data. And what we want is, it's the # sample. That is the name of their keyword that has, the name of the particular tube that you're looking at. So let me just see, hopefully I can find this here. Yeah, there it is. $, oh, sorry, not $, # sample. And yeah, and now, I will close this. And so you can see that also shortens it as well if you wanted to get rid of the rest of the name of the experiment, just so your plot titles are a little bit shorter. Okay, so if there's any questions, just feel free to enter them in the questions and answer box. I'm glad to answer those. But in summary, we showed you how to import your BD, FACSDiva, and Accuri workspaces, and how to edit your plots and gates and add statistics, and how to do a batch process to Excel and PowerPoint. You could also have added one to PDF if you like. It's really very much the same. So thank you so much for attending today. Like I said, today would be short and sweet. I just don't want to give you too much extra information because we cover those in other webinars. But really, I hope you'll all try this with your own data. It can be a great time saver for you, especially if you use these cytometers to acquire your data on a very frequent basis. So thank you so much, and have a wonderful day. I will stay on the line to answer the remaining questions.